Hello and welcome to this next episode, part 2 of the conversation we started last episode. So glad to have you. If you are catching us on YouTube or Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. My name's Kevin. I got Russ and Tim here with me and our special guest, Joel.
Joel Leggett.
Yes, sir.
How's it going, man?
It's going well. I have loved the C-Bus these last 3 days.
Awesome.
I know.
You learned about C-Bus.
Yeah. Tim was the first person.
He thought it was
Tim
a
was
bus.
the first person who sent it to me. And when I got off the plane,
Yeah,
I
did.
was like,
I said,
maybe
welcome
it's
to
a typo.
C-Bus.
I said, maybe it's a typo.
We're riding on the
And
road.
then I realized
He
everybody
said-
else kept saying it.
He said, "Is this the way you get underwater from city to city?" I said, "No, this is not a sea bus. This is just short for Columbus."
I did not say that.
Anyways,
Yeah,
and
don't believe him.
If you missed last episode, somebody punched Russ in the
The
vocal.
throat.
It was me, actually.
He got karate chopped, and so you can't really hear him. So
yeah.
Oh my gosh. You're better if you just don't talk. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
I'm walking away.
Send throat lozenge to the X Church.
we had a pretty crazy day yesterday. We
Yeah.
this episode is gonna be detailing the chronology of how it happened, and so I just kind of saw it real time. I'll give a loose kind of background or this the way the morning was going according to what I saw, and then maybe you guys can dive more into it. And if you missed any of this, we're gonna post the actual experience on our YouTube and on our website, so you can go back and look and listen, or you can listen to it on podcast. But basically, incredible morning yesterday. Pastor Joel came up from Atlanta. He shared a message on the book of Acts, chapter 4, kind of in our next, chronological order, kind of like what Pastor Tim said yesterday. I told him he could preach from anything as long as it was from Acts 4. And an incredible message on really just how the church would meet the needs of everybody within the community. And so they'd sell everything they had, and they would nobody had a need among them because everybody was generous with what they had. And so you were challenging our church, just how does that express itself today?
Yeah.
And so you just did a great job, teasing out all of how that looks in 2021 and for the modern day church. And so we just appreciate you bringing that to our church. But it was awesome. And that just kind of fresh challenge really sparked a wave of generosity throughout the church literally yesterday while you were preaching it. And so why don't you kind of...
Well, I think at the end of the 9:30 when you finished, you didn't know this, but we had planned to as a church to give a check to help your relaunch with your church. So he didn't know it was coming. I think that's part of the emotion of the moment. Is like we knew, we planned it. It was like, all right, we got a check for $2,500 that we're going to drop on him, to help his church plant. You guys are currently trying to raise, what was it, $25,000? $25,000 to help kind of the relaunch. And so we wanted to kind of help kickstart. And so I kind of like came up and did a handoff when you got done. I grabbed him, was like, no, come back here. And he was like, okay, and standing there all awkward and like, what's about that, And so I kind of shared with our church just a little bit of, I know what it's like when you go speak somewhere, you're not going to go there and go, man, this is where we are and this is our need. And this, that's not for you to do anyways. That's for me to do. So that was an opportunity for me to kind of let our church know about just kind of your journey of faith, because it is a journey of faith and there's massive risk and you're leaving what's comfortable to step into something that's unknown, taking on a bigger facility that you're able to rent that costs more than you have coming in. That's risk. And so I just, it was a cool opportunity for me to be able to take. So the reason why we as leaders can be generous is because the people in our church are generous.
It's good.
And we say in our church, it's one of our core values, generosity is our privilege. And so 10% of what people give to our church, we turn around and we use it to go back out and to serve in our community, to help people, do outreach, to help people in need within our community or outside the walls of our community. I mean, it's just kind of like this pot of money that funds that we separate out from every time when people give. So I want people in our church to see where it's going to. And this was an opportunity for us to kind of say, hey, because of your giving and generosity, we're able to give $2,500, and then you cried like a baby.
Oh, I had snot coming out of my nose.
Yeah, you were crying like a baby.
More snot at the 11:15 though.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, I got
and
it
so
on your shirt.
and the church just got excited. Like, it was cool. I mean, people were standing up and clapping because, I think they were excited for you and your story after you shared. But I think there's also like they're glad to be a part of really investing in what you're doing.
Right.
And that was it. There was no ask. There was nothing else. And then after the experience going out there,
Are you about to cry?
no.
It does look like you're about to
Do
cry.
I really?
Yeah.
Do it.
No,
It's
I
okay.
haven't.
Yeah,
Should I
you
cry?
definitely should.
Pinch me under here so I can cry. Oh, no. And no, I didn't.
Your eyes are watering.
I think
really.
you should just let it out.
I know. I really.
You teared up yesterday though.
I did.
You
It was incredible. And
This is a safe place.
thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice having a counselor here. And so we went out into the foyer, and we're out there, and I just never been so proud of my church because I just got to witness person after person coming up. I want to tell this one. I got to tell this one. So I'm standing next to him, and there's a lady that comes out of our church, her and someone else, and she waiting because I was talking to him, and she comes up and she reaches out and she shakes his hand and slides something, and pulls her hand back. And she shakes his hand. This is the first one. And we're just standing there. And so, and she said, "Hey, thank you so much for coming and sharing," and Joel's he just like, "Oh, thank you so much." And then she walks away, and he takes and he slips his hand. And he looks at me and goes, "I think she just gave me money." I said, "Have you never had that before? That's called the Pentecostal handshake."
Yeah.
As soon as someone comes up with money in the hand, you can't see
Where
it.
I come from, we call it an NCAA violation.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so I got to, and then so people just kind of coming up and just talking to him, and while someone else was talking to him, a lady comes, one of our servant leaders comes up to me, and I had a check in her hand. She was like, "Here, will you give this to him when he's done?" And she walks off. And then you can probably go from there. What happened at the 9:30? Because then you had I was talking to other people, but I don't know. It just started flowing.
It just kept happening.
It just started flowing. What happened in 9:30?
I mean, there were several checks literally between the 9:30 and 11:15. But for the 9:30, another person came up with another check.
Yeah.
Then another person came up with another check, and then I'm talking to one of you guys' servant leaders.
Yeah.
And a guy is waiting in the distance for me.
Yeah.
And he is standing there with an envelope.
Yeah.
And he just says, "Hey, like I had this in my drawer. You can do more with it than I can." And it was like it weighed a lot.
Wow.
It was thick. So I was like, I can't put that in my back pocket.
Stack
So
of
I just
cash.
stack of cash.
Wow.
And he didn't want any thank you. I mean, he just felt it. He just walked right off. And he had to have gone back home to get it, which
Didn't you say it was in a sock drawer or something?
that's what he told me. It's in his
It's in
sock
my
drawer.
drawer.
Yeah,
I
in
won't
his
do
sock.
anything good with it. So
But-
here you.
Yeah, exactly. I won't do nothing good. He said you're gonna do a lot better with it than I will. It was
And
in my
he walked
sock
off.
drawer and I knew he didn't get it from a bank because none of the bills matched. It was all random. It was all random.
And
money.
I remember walking back. It was right before the 11:15 was starting. I walked back into my office in a green room. We're gonna call it, it's all one. And he's sitting in there, and you're in there, Russ, and he just got this dumbfounded look on his face, like, "What just happened?" Like,
Yeah.
and what I love was that it was completely unprovoked. It was not asked. I didn't ask anybody in the church, "Hey, listen, if you feel in your heart that you want to help, bless us." No, it was just they saw our collective church being generous, and how much that impacted, I think, you. And knowing what it's going toward, which is the church, and you stepping out in faith doing it, and it moved their hearts. Yeah. God moved their hearts, and people on their own just started coming out of the woodwork and bringing money and checks. I had someone else in between the 9:30 and 11:15 that came up to me that I know, and they're like, "If I get a check to you, can you get it to them?" I'm like, I know that person. I said, "I'll send you a link to their link on their site, and you can give to their relaunch."
Yep. And they went right on it.
And they went on their website, and they did it.
And someone matched.
And then
It's
someone
well-
matched at 11:15.
Yeah.
Another
And
gentleman,
It's
yeah.
just crazy. So that all happened at the 9:30, okay? And then we get started into the 11:15 experience, and it was like mayhem. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
So I'm walking around, I attended first service, second service. I'm just kind of mingling with everybody. And so I talked to Trey, and he's like, "Hey, you need to go in there." I'm like, "Well, what are you talking about?" He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "But there's a picture of a car loaded
On the
into
screen.
loaded into our system." And I said, well, what's happening with that?
So
And he's like, I don't know. So I was like,
So
all
let me-
right,
let
I
me-
guess I'm going in
let me
service.
get-
So I stopped what I was doing, and I just came in and watched just with everybody else.
let me.
Okay, before you start it, I want to give a little bit of just brief background on the man you're about to talk about.
Well, why don't we do it after I talk about him?
Okay.
Let me do it after I talk about it, because this was crazy, and this is just. I felt like it was an Acts 4. The passage you spoke from, Acts 4:32 through 37.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like it was like something that was written 2,000 years ago was happening in our midst, right in that moment. So let me go back before the 11:15 service.
Can I just interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. From the outside perspective, we are a really great, and I'm not saying this like pat ourselves on the back, but we plan everything to a T.
Yeah.
I mean, the way you operate, like I'm pretty sure you get pretty frustrated with me because I'm not that way. But we are just, man, we expect excellence, man. We just plan that every transition, every musical thing, it's just all flowing. And so it is when that kind of was. Yesterday was just God moving.
God.
And it's like, hold on for dear life. Let's just see what happens. And to see that happen in our midst, like it is not usual. Not like God doesn't move like that all the time through our church, because God does. But to witness it, it was just goosebumps, incredible,
It was
unbelievable.
I wish I could bottle it up.
It was a day. And so we'll go into so before the 11:15, I'm out in the foyer. We're kind of wrapping up, and I know it's about time to start. It was like 10 minutes before it was about to start. And there's a guy who's hanging out there. I've talked to him. He's been coming to our church for the last 2 months, and his name's Tony. He's been coming to our church for the last couple months, and just and afterwards you can share a little bit more of his backstory. I don't know it all, but you can do that. But I've had a few conversations with him. I know he's had some hard times, and so I'm just talking to him. He's just, we just wanted to say hi. I was like, hey, man, it's great to see you. I'm glad you're here today and all that. I was like, how you doing? He's like, it's been better. I'm like, well, what's wrong? He's like, well, just, and I think I said it wrong, but it was like a week. He's like, a week ago Thursday, someone stole my car. I said, what? He's like, yeah, someone stole my car. I don't know why you'd steal it. It was like it was a 1995 Taurus, and the window didn't roll all the way up, and door handle and thing didn't work. He was like, I don't know why you'd steal it. I said, well, that's maybe why they stole it, because and his girlfriend, she was like, yeah, and you don't even need a key to start it. I'm like, well, that might be why it got stolen. It was pretty easy to steal, And
How they starting it?
Huh?
How they starting it?
I think I think it's a screwdriver. You just put it in there and turn it. And maybe it's stolen. I don't know, but it was. And so he was just. He said,
about to cry again?
No,
I'm just kidding.
And so I'm like, man, dude, I'm sorry to hear that. That's just awful. And I was just glad they were here. And so we're sitting in the service during the worship music, and I get a text from somebody that I ran into during the 9:30 that had left the building. And this person, they sent me a text message, and they said, hey, I didn't get a chance to talk to Pastor Joel. But his message just really spoke to me. It really moved my heart. And he said, my wife and I, we just got a newer vehicle. And he said, and so we still have a vehicle that we were going to sell. And he said, I just felt like God prompted my heart and said that we want to give it away. Wow. And he said, we want to give that to somebody in need. If you have somebody in need, or, we have a big, he made reference, we have a big serve week coming up in July, and he's like, maybe we can use it then or whatever. And so I'm like, man, that's incredible. I was just kind of blown away that God would move someone's heart to give away a vehicle. It was definitely worth some money. And so I just kind of taken back, and okay. So just continued with the rest of that, and then the message, I did my thing, and then he started at the beginning of the message, and then it hits me. I'm like, wait a minute. I just had a guy who told me he had his car stolen, and then I have somebody else 10 minutes later texting me saying, I want to give a car to somebody in need.
In a message
that he's preaching that says in Acts 4:34 that there were no needy persons among them, because the people sold their own possessions and their land and gave it to the apostles to give to the people in need. Yeah. And I'm sitting here listening. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so I text him back while he's preaching. I'm like, I hope he doesn't think I'm ignoring him, but I'm texting him back while he's doing. I'm like, hey, there's a guy that just had his car stolen, and if you trust me, can I give it away? like at the end of the service. And, you know, I'm waiting and waiting. He's like, man, whatever. Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That'd be incredible, you know. And then I'm texting him some more. And then at one point I text him like, because this is all happening so fast. I'm like, does your wife know? Is she okay with this? You know, I want to make sure she's okay. Like,
Yeah.
He was like, no, she's pumped. And then next thing you know, he sends me a picture of the car. He was like, here, if you want to stick this up on the screen, you can. I was like, okay. So then I'm texting it to our production, you know, director, and I'm like, hey, prepare this, have this verse ready, and I don't know, we're just gonna do something. So I didn't know how we were gonna do it, but I'm like, we're gonna do something. So at the end of the message, kind of like it did in the last one, you finished praying. I came up, I grabbed you again, and you know, it was a really cool moment because we had planned this, but you didn't know this. And we talked about, and we got to celebrate because, you know, you have multiple services. I wanted the 11:15 to know that we had given $2,500 in the 9:30, and so we kind of celebrated that. And I said, but we're not done yet. And so we gave another check for $2,500 to you.
That's where the snot came.
So yeah, that was when the snot came.
Ooh, that hit
yeah,
me.
you about left.
I did.
I was like, no, come back. Do
couldn't
not walk
step.
away. He was
My
like-
legs were shaking.
And so it was cool just for us and for me and leading our church to be able to go, hey, here's $5,000 to invest in your church and the relaunch.
Real.
And but then in that moment I was just like, but hold on, we're not done. So I walked over because I saw him while I was up front, and I was like, hey, you just told me you had a car stolen, didn't you? Come here. And I was just, all right, get up
You
here.
just called him straight
I'm
away.
like, get up
And he
here.
was
I'm like, come up here, man. He was just like, oh, okay. It was just, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, hey, come up here. Just come up here. And, you know, he just came up there, and man, you could just see him just all emotional, and his life had been impacted. And it was just a cool moment for me to be able to say, I was able to just say what the apostles experienced in Acts 4 2,000 years ago happened live on Sunday. Like, you could not script this. I did not know, but I just felt like it was a total God moment where God put all this together. We're talking about within 10, 15 minutes, I hear of a guy who got a car stolen, somebody else who wants to donate a car to somebody in need. He's sitting there up there talking and preaching about there are no needy people among them because people sold their possessions and gave them to him. I'm like, you could not script this.
Nope.
I was like, I need to do this at the end because this is a real life illustration.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was a sermon
Oh, yeah.
illustration.
Oh, yeah.
It was like real life.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely crying.
And am I crying? It was emotional.
It was good.
And it was such a powerful moment, but it also continued the wave of generosity.
One of my favorite things was I knew a lot of people who'd been to the first one. I saw them later in the day, and they're like, "Oh, how's church?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, with this whole thing with the car." They're like, "What?"
The whole thing with the car.
What are you talking about?
People
I'm like,
online were watching, sending in, just could not believe it.
I know. People watching it. You know, people on vacation, like, what in the world just happened? So, really crazy. Joel, I want to hear your perspective from it. You know,
Man.
it's like adrenaline high to preach like that. I'm sure it's like to the nth degree to come to another church in another state you've never been to, and to share a word like that. That's that challenging. You know, it's just what was it like? Tell me about it.
It was, well, you know, Pastor Russell was talking. Normally, you go to churches and you preach red hots when you're a guest preacher. We all know that. You have the 4 to 5 minutes
that you really
that you memorize well to the T. That you know gets people to stand up and go nuts.
Messages
you got these
that you
cool
know.
Messages that you know. That's what
they work.
That's how a ministry game works.
Yeah.
So you know, if somebody asks me to come, I'm going to preach a red hot, but preaching a fresh word that you write, you know, because as a lead pastor, you write a new message every 6 days.
Yeah.
Preaching a new word coming out of town to a church of this magnitude gave me some communication anxiety. You know, I didn't tell you all that, but I mean I did.
Yeah.
And I was like preaching a fresh word at my church every week. No big deal. Like
Right.
sure, like if it's not good, well, you know, maybe I'll come back next week. But you know, a church of this size. And, you know, obviously I want to honor Pastor Tim and everybody and do a good job and, you know, and steward his people well for 40 minutes because he's given the opportunity. So I'm going to blow it. So I'm like, okay, this is the passage that I'm choosing. Our church comes from this passage. Okay,
church name.
The church name,
Church
Core
name,
Church.
Core Church.
Yep, Core Church came 432. You know, because his core is Latin for heart, C-O-R, all believers are united heart and mind. And I'm like, okay, so we're talking about possessions, we're talking about an unstoppable church. I'm like, this is so good. But normally you allow the shepherd of that house to talk about money and, you know, and sex.
Giving your
and,
possessions
and
to
all that kind of
something.
stuff. So I'm like, man, this is kind of risky. You know, like this is kind of risky for me, you know, talking to Pastor Tim's, you know, flock, you know, the congregation, the people about something like this. And I'm like, and I was sharing with Russ, I was like, man, do you think this is gonna be over the line? You know, and he was like, no, he said, you know, he said, here, go and do it. I was like, I guess either I'll never see that church again, and so I just went with it. But I felt like it was okay because my testimony and my story, it attached to it. Yeah. It wasn't like, oh, hey, this is principles about making sure you tithe, and I don't have any personal tie to it. Mm-hmm. So as I was preaching it, you know, and it's just going and it's going. It's like, okay, people are receptive to it. They're clapping. They're amen. I was like, okay, so this is okay. And I just felt like just the presence in this place. It was just electrifying. I mean, I felt it was just unreal what was happening. And when you guys gave me the $2,500, I'm like, oh my gosh. So I told Pastor Russ, I said, you know, for our campaign, we're raising $25,000, 250 people. I was like, dude, that's a lot. $2,500. I said, that's a lot. That's 25 people. I'm like, I was like, man, that's a big mark towards what we're doing. And then we went to the back, and then I had got all that cash, and I'm just sitting there just looking. They came in when I'm counting it, right? Yeah. Because I was gonna wait to after to count it. I was like, no, I was like, this envelope's too thick. I was like, I got to know what's in here. So I started counting, and they walked in while I have all of the treasure sitting in front of me. And then they come back here, and then we go out to the lobby after the 11:15. I just could not. I can't put words to it, man. I didn't sleep last night. I just could not believe. When I was on the plane, you know, I was writing in my journal while I was flying, and I was just like, God, you know, you called me for this moment, for a time such as this. Mm-hmm. For these people, you got a word, like for this moment. Because I was telling Pastor Russ, I could have came here any other time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And different people could have been here, but it was for this moment, this time, these families, these people, and they're coming up to me, giving me checks. They're crying. Mm. I'm crying. Mm-hmm. You know, one guy's like, I want to match with
Pastor Tim's crying right now.
Right, like they want to match.
I'm not crying right
like
now.
They want to match. They're like, they want to match.
I walked in for a moment and you were under your desk.
Nobody can hear you back there.
So
can we get a close up on him?
Yeah.
On Tim,
so one guy comes up. He says it so nonchalant. He's like, I want to match $2,500.
Like, matched. Yeah. One guy came up and matched the $2,500 check and gave him one of the services.
Yeah. He's like, I want to match it. Mm-hmm. He said it so like I want to match it. Like I was like, okay. And then one of the pastors here on staff took me into the room, and I filled out a connect card so he can go on the website and everything. That's like cool. That. He just lined it all up. And then another person said, I want to match it. And then she gave me another one for $2,500.
Oh my gosh.
Another for $2,500. Then somebody gave me another check for $1,000. Mm-hmm. Multiple checks of $500.
So how much did you leave with yesterday?
Y'all ready for this drum roll?
Come on, drum roll.
Yeah, right. $15,200.
Come on,
I mean, that unreal.
Over $15,000. That was not anticipated.
And when I came here, we had $1,093 for our campaign. Wow. So far. And I was just like, and it's a little ticker.
Now you're going home with over 16?
Yep.
If you add it to it?
Oh, yeah, about 16 to 17,000.
$16 to $17,000 towards your $25,000 goal.
I mean,
come on.
So we were needing 250 people. Now we need 80 people. And that is so.
Now you're like, we can do it.
Yeah, that is so. That feels a lot better than 250 people. And I can't wait to share it with our church. They are going to freak out. Just to talk about the generosity of this house, and then all of the cool after stories, the Instagram posts, the post under when I share what happened yesterday, the crying, and
mom sobbing.
My mom literally put her hand. I mean, she fell over in the car. She fell over in the car when I talked. You know, it's just because I thought, I thought it would. When I was talking, I think I was talking to Pastor Tim about this. It never feels magical when you take a step of faith. Right. Mm-hmm. It never feels magical. Like when we went to that school, like I knew that it was an answer to prayer, but it just didn't feel magical. Yeah. I'm walking around with the principal, and he's excited for me, and I'm like, man, this is great, but this is really. I'm looking at 500 seats, and I'm like, dude, this is scary. This is a lot of money. He's like, oh, even if you guys can't pay, he was like, we won't. Wow. It'll be all right. He's like, just wait. He was like, just wait until you move in, and then you can pay. You don't have to pay us right now.
Oh my
and I'm just like, amazing. But I'm still thinking, how are we going to pay for this? Like, how is it going to happen? But we're just going to keep moving forward. And I could not.
What did God show you yesterday?
I mean, that he's faithful.
That he's faithful.
That he's faithful. That's it. I mean, that he's faithful. But saying yes to the movie theater, knowing that it was way outside of our budget because you challenged me to do it. Yeah. And then the school opened up. And launching a church in COVID, getting into school was It's impossible.
Impossible.
So what
They
I
also
did
don't.
was I built a template, a very nice template, and I said, "Dear principal, blah blah blah, dear principal." And what I just did was just attach different principles in it, and I just kept praying, "Lord, you know my MacBook. Now, you know that sound? You get on the email. Yep. I just prayed, "Lord, let this be it. Let this be." And I just sent it to multiple. And then the first principal hit me back came with the auditorium.
Wow.
And I just unreal.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. One, just thank you. Thank you for what you brought to the church.
Yeah.
And that anxiety of like, what's on the other side of me obeying what God wants me to say. You never know.
Right.
You sow those words and you hope that God
Yeah,
does what only He can do. And that's what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And that's gonna not only like does it affect obviously you guys' campaign and what you do like from a fiscal perspective, but that's gonna change our church forever.
Yeah.
Like, yesterday was that
Funny moment.
yeah, I think that taught a lot of people just from seeing it in action play out. Go, ooh, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And it brought Acts 4 to life. It brought the beginning of the church to life. And
Wow.
so just thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I want to talk a little bit about just what your perspective was on our church. Now,
Oh, it was fantastic. I told
and don't butter it up. I mean, anytime we have somebody from the outside come in, we just like when you're in something for so long, whether it's a business or you're whatever you do, it's like we really appreciate the feedback.
The feedback,
you know?
yeah.
So just tell us what you saw.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm playing in the college league every week at Core Church. So coming here. I mean, this is pro level. I mean, it just is. It is what it is. I told Pastor Russ, I said, this was a mega church, excellent experience.
Yeah.
It was a mega church. I mean, it's like I was sitting in Life Church, but the pastor was not on the screen. I was sitting like I was sitting in Life Church. I mean, it was that excellent. And I said, just the warmth of the people. So many people, came up to me and just said, "Man, we're just so glad that you're here." Just the moment that you announced that I was coming, Instagram messages came to me. A lady had named Miss Gina, I believe, and she just like, "Hey, so excited that you're coming." And she was not even here; she was out of town.
Would shout out her and Shreveport, Panama City.
Yeah, she was out of town.
Yeah.
So just the love of generosity and just the warmth started to overflow before I even got here, and I thought that was a very special culture.
You felt hospitality and generosity.
Before I even got here.
That's so
like
cool.
She reached out to me and just said, "Hey, so excited that you're here." Like people were just sending me, messages on Instagram before I even arrived, and just they're just so excited to be here, which was so special. They weren't like, "Oh, like I gotta serve coffee,"
A couple things you told me yesterday when I asked you this question, not to put words back in your mouth.
No, do it.
You said, and this is one of the coolest things when you hear it, is you said there was like this hyped excitement, but from staff and servant leaders, volunteers, what we call them, alike. You said, but it was so genuine.
Yes.
You said all the excitement was so genuine, all the warmth and reception of you. You said, I've never been in a place where it felt so, the care was so real.
Yes.
And so down to earth that so many people were excited about you. And then another thing you said that just, and this isn't comparing other churches or mega churches, and this may sound even kind of ethereal online if you're not from a faith context, but you said yesterday, you said, it had the excellence of a mega church. You said, but the spirit, the presence that was in this room.
I didn't know if I can go that spirit.
You
Okay,
can go there.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. You can keep going.
No, but I mean, in a way that people, I think everyone that's listening knows what it's like to experience a moment of transcendence, where you're in a moment talking to someone or in a room, however you would describe it, that there's something beyond that moment, beyond that world. And for us, I know in our faith context, the hope when we gather in this room is that not just someone speaking or singing, but there's a power behind that speaking and singing. That there's actually a power in this room. There's a presence in this room that changes lives. Yeah. And so I don't know.
Because I was expecting, not such a present spirit-filled atmosphere, because I've never preached in Ohio before. So I knew what it was like in Oklahoma.
Right.
It was not to anybody in Oklahoma at all, but just, stylistically, when you go different places, just the spirit of worship is just, you go to Georgia, it's the Bible Belt. Yeah. Everybody claps and jumps up and down. Everybody preaches you down. It's just a normal Bible Belt culture. Yeah. So, when you go there, you can say praise the Lord, and they're going to erupt. Yeah. But like that's just Georgia. That's Georgia for you, know. But coming here, when I'm hearing people shout me down, and I'm hearing amazing, I love her to death. Miss Janice back there on the keys, and she set the atmosphere for the present. When I was standing for God's presence, when I was standing back here, standing in Raleigh, and standing next to her, and just watching people lift their hands and worship, I was not expecting that. And also, be honest with you, I was also not expecting diversity. I was not expecting diversity, and it was almost making me rethink the way that I communicate, because I was not sure what kind of audience I was going to expect. Because the second worship experience, I felt more me, because I was like, oh, they're cool with me. Yeah, they're cool with the language that I use. Yeah. They're cool with me. Absolutely. But the first one, I'm like, because you always want to honor the man of God of the house. You don't want to go up here and it's like stupid. You want to know who you're speaking to. Yep. But I was shocked by the diversity and just the care and the love that they had for me. That shifted so much of my.
I think our church embraced. I think our church fell in love with you.
Yeah, embraced.
Just from the moment you're showing a picture of your family.
One lady said she cried the moment that cried the moment the family went up there. Yeah. I cried too.
Yeah,
that was weird.
It was cool.
You've been crying a lot lately.
Still crying.
Why are you crying
I'm not.
so much?
You
are crying.
Your eyes are watering.
They are. Do we have a tissue?
I love it. In the back. You are. Are you crying, Brad?
I don't. They've been telling me I'm crying the whole time. I don't realize I'm crying.
I didn't notice it until
Waterworks.
Your eyes are watering.
Well, I want to. I want to say. I know we didn't really tell the backstory of that guy that got the car. I don't know if it's necessary or not to do, but I left yesterday. My perspective will be a little bit different, probably, in the fact that I just left incredibly proud of the church that we have. Not the building, the church that we have. People. The people that
here's the church.
Here's the people. Open the door and see all the people.
And here's the people.
That we didn't even have to ask them.
This is what you always say.
What are you doing?
What is that?
It's the church.
Is that a gang sign?
Yeah, put that down. Yeah, we don't
that's inappropriate.
I
was just blown away by just people not asking them and just seeing people. It was a chain reaction of generosity that I think we as leaders got to demonstrate up front. At first, when I was able to set up that moment and say, here's $2,500 from our church. It's not me. This is our church. This is, I think it was a chain reaction. And one of our core values, I said it before, generosity is our privilege. I think we, as leaders as well, got to see it in action. And I think that made me so proud of our church. And then even like the situation with the guy that, someone in our church donating a car, which was a big sacrifice for that family. I know their situation to donate that car rather than to sell it. It spoke to people who are in our church that don't believe. Yeah. We have people in our church that don't believe in God. We have people in our church that aren't Christians. We have people, and to see one person, that would write in and say, hey, that normally gets stipend to say, hey, instead of paying me, I want you to take that money and give it to the guy who got the car because he's going to need to pay for fees and stuff. And he's not a Christ follower. Yeah. This is somebody who works and does something that we do, but was so impacted by that moment, that God moment of generosity that it affected their life. I don't have words. I left on it was like walking out and going, this was one of those days that I will never forget. I wrote it in my journal. Yeah. I wrote it was like this morning, but I wrote in there, I was like, yesterday was going to be one of those days I won't forget because of what I just felt like God did in that moment. And I believe that as much as you coming blessed us, I believe God ordained all of that for he was lining up. It wasn't even our church. It was all the other people in our church to bless you and your church plant and to respond to your step of faith. And you know what? It builds my faith because now I think if God's going to do that for you, he'll do it for me.
Yeah, come on.
If God will do it for you, he'll do it for us.
That's right.
And so we're walking our own step of faith, but it encourages me to go, okay, well, we'll see it too.
Yeah.
We'll see it too. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we'll see it too. So it was so cool.
And for me as a communicator, it's like digging deeper into God's word and presenting it for what it is.
Right.
should the word
enough.
right is
It's
enough
enough.
and the people respond
Yes.
when you stay
Yeah.
true to what the text says.
Yes.
And I don't have to go and fabricate something good
Yeah.
so that they'll
Yeah.
respond. It's like this is what I didn't break it down in the Hebrew and the Greek and go all wild. It was 5 verses.
Yeah.
And we really camped out on like 3 of them.
Yeah.
You know, and they responded that way. So like today, preachers, communicators, whatever, are we missing out on these big acts moments because we're shying away and saying what we want to say, thinking that that'll draw a response when God's like, no, just preach the text.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
and man,
so good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I don't know. I had so many things to take away from yesterday. I think what I love, just everything you guys said, yes, but also just in a season of life where everybody is, life feels dull, and people are struggling with so many, bouts of depression, anxiety, and just trying to work through this whole year we've been in.
Yeah.
To go, man, there is nothing more exciting than following Jesus.
Yeah.
Come on.
There is, when he says, I came to give life and life to the full.
Yeah.
That's what I saw yesterday.
Yeah.
And that when you hear it on the other side of a podcast or you don't have the names, like the blessing, we know the people who gave the money. We saw their faces. We know their situations. We know that it's not like a whole bunch of millionaire business owners came in and wrote these little checks that mean nothing. People sacrificed yesterday. There were a lot
Money
of
they'd
people
been saving for things. They
For
went
things.
home and got it.
Yeah.
Out of a drawer.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like just these angel investors coming and doing a church Shark Tank and giving, like, that's not what it was. These people who have 5 cars and they just gave one away. These are people who sacrificed and said, no, this is a response to what the Spirit of God's doing in my heart. And for me, it's like it was just that reminder of going, hey, if you feel like the darkness of the last year and you can't shake it and you just don't know where to go, you don't know what to do, I think the best thing to do to start is to step out in faith.
Yeah.
When last episode, we talked a lot about your guys' perspective of what it's like to try to ask for people to give their resources to build God's kingdom, and how nerve-wracking that is. But on the other side, like as someone who's been on the other side of those asks, there is no greater privilege than to sow your resources and what you have into something bigger than yourself.
Yes.
And to let I think you said it yesterday, Joel, like we trust our resources to somebody, whether it's Target or whether
somebody's gonna
Apple,
get it.
Someone's gonna get my money. But the chance to be a part of something supernatural. What happened yesterday, I don't care what you believe. That was supernatural.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
That doesn't happen, And so to be a part of that, that's life.
Yeah.
And that's God.
Yeah.
And that's an experience that will stay with you forever. And so our invite, and this is why we have these conversations, and this is why we do what we do. Is to, I think when you hear these things, like you said, they sound like ethereal, and they sound like, and then somebody came and it's really just real life people sacrificing their real life resources to change people's
And it
life
wasn't
for real.
intentional on the house's behalf. It wasn't like you were in a Crazy Faith series where it was all intentional about getting people to move toward a purpose. It wasn't. That's the beauty of it. It wasn't forced.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was
So good.
It was incredible. So we encourage you, watch the message. Do we have a title for that yet?
Just power in what you possess.
Power in what you
or
possess.
power in what you possess. Yeah.
Power in what you possess. So it'll be up on YouTube. You can go watch it and share it. We hope that this doesn't just encourage you, but it encourages the people you know. So send it to everybody you know. We are just on cloud 9. And thank you so much for what you
gonna be up
invested
all
in
week.
our church. And unfortunately, you're connected with us forever now.
That's
so
right.
you are now a
I love it.
sibling
I'm the
church of-
Funkles. What
the Funkle.
Pastor Rick says. Fun uncle. I said cousin yesterday.
Something like that.
cousin.
Yeah,
Something
the
or
cousin. Yeah.
But we love you, and we're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
So glad we
Love it.
got
What an honor,
to
privilege.
experience you and what God's doing in your heart and through your church. And if you're listening, we would love for you to not just partner with us, but partner with Pastor Joel in their campaign. If you feel so called and so moved, you could give the website one more time.
Yes, it's the THECOR church.com. No E. TheCoreChurch.com.
TheCoreChurch.com, and they got buttons on there you can click and,
Lead you all
and sow and
socials.
invest. And then what's your Instagram again?
Joel Romero, JoelRomere. Joel Romero, and I'm like the only one, so it's not very many Joel Romeros.
We'd love for you to just connect with him. He's a part of our family now, and you are a part of our family if you're listening. As always, we appreciate it if you like, subscribe, and share this conversation, and send us an email. We would love to hear your feedback. We would love to hear if this is encouraging you. We would love to even answer your questions as we have episodes where we do that every once in a while. So we'd love to hear from you. And as always, thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time.